Hello and welcome back to the next episode of the My Story in Motorsport podcast. Today we are joined with a sensation of GT racing currently, Dani Juncadella. He's racing with Mercedes in DTM this year, and throughout his career has won so much it would be impossible for me to list it all out in this introduction here today. As with a lot of these videos I have produced, this was recorded in 2020, whilst we were all going through the start of a very uncertain year. So some things mentioned in this podcast do refer to that, just to let you know. But nonetheless, some great stories from Dani. I really appreciate his time. And of course, wishing him the best of luck for 2021, where he returns to DTM after taking one season out in 2020. So, Dani, you've had obviously a long career in motorsport right now, but as we're recording this, we're going through some tough times. So I'd like to just start off by saying sort of how you're doing and how you're getting through the last sort of few months.
Yeah, I'm good actually. I've been like everybody in lockdown, but currently I'm living in Ireland with my girlfriend because she works for Google, and it's actually pretty good here because in Spain the lockdown is getting more serious. People are not allowed to go outside even for exercising, and here in Ireland we have a couple more permissions to go outside, to go training, to go running, to go cycling, not very far or by yourself, but you can still go. And the weather is actually fantastic, since I'm sure you have seen, if you're living in UK, I'm not sure, but the weather is good here and it's a big surprise. So actually it's not that bad.
Well, perfect. It's good that we've had some good weather, to be fair, especially for England and Ireland. We've been lucky. I'd like to go maybe back to the start of your motorsport career, because it's interesting to see that you started in karting, but you didn't actually have a long career in karting, did you? Do you have some memories from those early years?
I do, yeah. I started pretty late because I did a karting race when I was 8 years old, but a friend of mine had an accident and my dad said, let's forget it. This is a bit dangerous. And at the time I was doing a lot of sports. I was doing a lot of soccer. I was doing a lot of tennis. I was skiing, not professionally because I was very young, but in like a proper team. So I didn't really mind because I was busy enough with school and sports. But then a couple of years later, when I was 13, I saw some guys had been already Spanish karting champions, which I did race against them when I was 8 years old, and I was beating them. So I said, I want to race again. And it was also at the same time that Fernando Alonso started winning races in Formula One, then went on to winning a world championship. So I was following Formula One, but it was the first time that a Spanish guy was winning races. So I was like, okay, I want to be like Fernando Alonso. So I started all over again. But I just did 2 years in karting because then I had to step up to single seaters. So yeah, my karting career was very short. I was not very experienced, but I was still, it was good to have a couple of years to learn the basics and have a bit of fun.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say most drivers spend, or quite a few drivers could spend, nearly 10 years doing karting. So was it 3 years doing karting is relatively short time. Do you think it affected you at all when you made that jump to cars?
It didn't affect for my jump on cars, but it did affect my karting career. I don't think I was super successful in karting because I always looked at the other guys like they were some sort of superhumans. I remember racing against a lot of drivers that nowadays I'm still racing, but at the time they were like my heroes because I was following karting and I was not racing at the time, or just before that. Then I was looking like at some guys like, I remember it was Philip Eng, Will Stevens, Charles Pic, that he's not racing anymore, but these guys were like the top guys in karting, and I was like, whoa, look at them. So it was just the beginnings, and I think, like I said, learning the basics, karting is great, but then when you step into single seaters, I was at an equal stage because I started pretty young when I was 16, so that was good. Which nowadays this would be very late, as you can imagine, with the Max Verstappen that is since 17 years old in Formula One. But yeah, at the time 16 was fine.
Is it strange to think that you're still racing against some of those guys that you did karting with way back in the day?
Well, I think it's cool. It's just we are part of the Motorsport family, and we turned into professionals, and this is great because we obviously keep close contact with each other, and we've been in this sport for so long, which is it's really cool. And also we need to make ourselves some space to fight against the young up and coming young guns. So that's good fun.
I've got written down that you won 7 races in your first season in racing. Did you realise at that point that was something you really wanted to pursue, because you realised you had the talent with it? You know, it wasn't just you wanted to do it, you're quick as well.
Yeah, of course. I was obviously in a position where I was looking up to Fernando Alonso, honestly, because he was the Spanish guy that was the big sensation in Spain, and I thought I want to be like this guy. It took me a bit, but I could see that I had the talent. I had the raw talent, but I had to work on some areas because I was still like looking too much on everybody else and like focusing on comparing myself to others. And I was still young though, but I had the speed and I was winning races. But it only came quite late that I realized that this is my thing, you know, because I did a couple of years later on with Red Bull in the Red Bull Junior team, but I was then sacked because I finished only vice champion of the Formula BMW Europe, which was not enough for Dr. Marco. But then when I went on to win the Macau Grand Prix in Formula 3, that was like a turning point in my career. That's when I thought, okay, I'm good for this.
Wow, okay, I didn't realise it was maybe that late. I mean, I've got down in 2008 you were racing in Europe, over in the United States as well, with Formula BMW. Do you feel like that car was really good to help you sort of learn the basics after not having so long in kart?
Of course, and the level and the competitiveness of the championship was great. I was in the Red Bull Junior team, but I was still young and naive, and I didn't really manage to hold the pressure that I was being applied at Red Bull from Helmut Marko and all the Red Bull management. Like I was just, it was hard for me. So it was a time where I think deep inside me, I didn't believe I was the next Fernando Alonso. So I knew I was quick, and everybody knew that I was going to be a professional driver one day, but I think deep inside me I didn't believe myself to be as good as the guys I was racing against, or some of the guys that were dominating some championships. So yeah, that's why I think I got dropped from the Red Bull program as well, because I finished second in the championship, to be fair, in the second year. That was a good result, but it was not enough. And then I was like, you know, being dropped by a program like Red Bull, you think to yourself, okay, maybe I'm not good enough. That's why I started having these doubts. But they changed pretty quickly, because in 2010 I went on to race the Formula 3 Euro Series, and my first ever race I got pole position, which was again like a wake up call, like thinking, wow, I'm actually pretty good maybe.
Yeah, I suppose you need those moments of, you know, you need bad moments, but you also need obviously the good moments to prove to yourself that you can do it. But 2010, I've got down as a very busy year for you. GP3, a few events in there, Formula 3 as well. They were, maybe on paper they look quite similar, but I assume they're very different cars to drive.
Yeah, they were. The new GP3 that year was a turbocharged engine with Pirelli tires, and Formula 3 was the standard Formula 3 with Kumho tires. So it was a completely different car, but similar speeds, I would say. But it was like a year where I had to kind of rebuild my career, kind of get the trust on myself again. I was together with the Mercedes junior team. I was not directly involved, but I was under observation because I had just been dropped by Red Bull. So like I said, I had a very good start into the Formula 3 season, and I just tried to get on the right path again myself, building some more self-confidence, which is, like I said, what I lacked at the time.
So maybe just jumping back to the Red Bull point, obviously you've said how it finished, but how did they get in contact with you in the first place? Because I guess for any young driver, that's an amazing call to get.
Yeah, before there was always like a Red Bull Junior team test, which they were doing in Estoril usually every end of year, and they were testing new up-and-coming karting stars and some other drivers. And I wasn't super successful in karting, but I did a year in 2007 when I finished second in the Spanish Formula BMW Championship, but I was dominating the whole year. I just didn't put it together, and one guy was more consistent than me and won the championship. But I was always being very quick, and I think thanks to some contacts as well. My uncle raced in Formula One, and he knew a bit Dr. Marco. He said, you should try my nephew. I think he's very good, because they were trying out some other Spanish drivers which were not as quick or as good as me that season. So they said, yeah, fine, okay, just bring him to Estoril for the test. So I got the test, and when I got there, I was immediately very, very good. So they offered me a contract. This was very simple. Dr. Marco kept it super simple. He was there, he was looking. We were like 30 drivers going around in different cars. I only drove the Formula BMW, but there were some guys in Formula Renault, Formula 3. I remember Sergio Perez was there. He was not taken, and I got a contract. I jumped out of the car, and he already made me sign a contract. So
wow. As you say, unfortunately, it didn't work out with Red Bull, but you signed with Mercedes a later date, and obviously that turned into something great, which I guess has really progressed your career. But we'll get onto that in a little bit. The results in 2010, you had an F3 win, as you said, pole as well, podium in GP3. Was that season about weighing up which championship you'd want to race in 2011, do you think?
Yeah, I was pretty sure I wanted to do Formula 3 Euro Series, because it was, like, for me, the best feeder series. You could see that most of the guys that ended up winning that championship went on to race in Formula 1. So I did that first year with Prema, which was, on paper, was a team that was not good enough to win the championship, because ART was winning all the series. But immediately in the first race, I got pole position. So that was a bit like, whoa, actually, they might be pretty good. And I also, Mercedes got interested in myself. So that was my rookie year, where I ended up winning the last race of the season and went on to race in Macau, which was my first year at Macau, but just to get some experience. And I knew that the 2011 I was going to race again in Formula 3 and again with Prema, because they had proved that they had a very competitive car and that they had the right tools to be successful. And that's how it was in 11, because my teammate was Roberto Meri, that ended up winning the championship in 11, where I came third, but we were dominating the whole year.
It's weird, isn't it? Because Prema now seems to be like the all-dominating team in GP3.
Yeah.
But maybe I didn't realise back then it was slightly different. But yeah. So
that's when it all started. I always joke to René Rotin, which is the Prema team manager, that he owes me a lot, because I made them successful, because nobody thought that they were going to be the top team, and that's when it all started, honestly.
I think, is it 2011 you also won your first one at Macau as well? So I guess that's a very important moment in any young driver's career.
Definitely, that was the year where I went to Macau, and I had been third in the Euro Series. I wasn't sure what I was going to do the next year, either GP2 or Formula 3. A third year in Formula 3 wasn't looking great, but I could do GP2. I didn't get an offer to do DTM, because Roberto had been champion, so he was going to get the DTM seat. So yeah, that was an amazing weekend where, like I said, the turning point in my career, because after that win, I thought, okay, this is it.
Is it a bit of a roller coaster? Macau, we see it on TV. It looks quite a scary track as a fan. But yeah.
Not only the track, but the weekend itself can be a roller coaster. And for me, it was. Actually, in 11, it was, because I crashed in qualifying. So I ended up qualifying, I think it was 16th. And I had a penalty. I had a play penalty, but luckily enough, other 15 or 14 drivers had also a 5 grid position penalty, and I was the last one to get penalized. So I got to a point where, with all the penalties, I went from 16th to 6th, and then they applied the penalty, and I was starting 11th at the pre-final, which was a big surprise for me. But actually, I won I gained 5 places. So that was for me like, okay, maybe I have a chance now. So on the pre-final, I just saved my new tires for the final race. On the pre-final, I went from 11th to 6th. And then for the final, I started 6th, and it was, I was the only guy with 4 new tires, and went on to P2 after a couple of laps, and everything seemed settled for the win for Marco Wittmann, who was leading the race. But then there was a late safety car with 5 laps to go, and I overtook him for the win. So it was a crazy weekend, to be fair, because after crashing in qualifying, I never realized I had a chance or a shot at the win.
Well, that's a crazy comeback. I suppose a lot of people, including myself, don't know that full story, so that's pretty epic. So, I mean, you've won at Macau, finished 3rd in Formula 3. I've heard you had some links with HRT. Was it a relative working within the team? Was there any possible?
Yeah, not really. That was when my uncle was at the like an advisor for the team, and it was still early times. Like, nowadays, you would think I would have had the chance at least to test the car, but at the moment I was still in Formula 3, and they were looking for money. They didn't have obviously the best car on the grid. They were struggling with budget, with everything. So we never really got into talks to start testing and start driving a Formula 1 car, because I wanted to focus on my Formula 3 season, because in 2012 I was going to do again Formula 3, and that's when I ended up winning the Formula 3 Euro Series in 2012. And then the team stopped after that season. So, yeah, not really. I didn't really get to race there.
I mean, yeah, it's a massive shame that HRT didn't continue. Do you think there might have been a chance there? I mean, I heard they wanted a Spanish driver. Obviously, they had Pedro de la Rosa in there for a bit. If they'd survived a few more years, is there a possibility maybe he might have ended up there?
Probably that would have been a good chance, of course, because I was the up-and-coming star in Spain after winning the Formula 3 Euro Series, so that would have been a good chance. But I also didn't choose the path of doing GP2 and that kind of series that brings you directly into Formula 1, because I got the offer to be a professional driver with Mercedes in DTM, and I felt that was a better chance for me at the time, because I still needed too many sponsors and budget to race in GP2, and I felt that was a bit too much risk for maybe no reward, or even so I think I made the right choice to stay loyal to Mercedes and build my professional career in DTM.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. I've heard, I don't know if this is true, did you get a test drive with Ferrari for winning the 2012 championship? How was that experience? I guess that's quite a mental time.
I was lucky, because there were 2 years in the Formula 3 Euro Series where the prize for winning winning the championship was a test with Ferrari in Formula 1, and that was in 12 and 13. So I won the series and got a test with Ferrari in Vallelunga, and it was my first Formula 1 experience too. And actually, coming from a Formula 3 car, I think stepping into Formula 1, it's the best thing you can do, because the Formula 3 car is super quick around the corners, and I think I was straight away on the pace. I remember at the time they had a reference from a couple of weeks before my test that Jules Bianchi was driving there to set a lap time reference. And I think when I got there, the track was substantially quicker, because after 6 laps I had already beaten his time, and I was like kind of shocked. And they even had some interest in me. They asked me what I was going to do next season and stuff, but I had already signed with Mercedes for DTM, so no chance to pursue a career within the Ferrari atmosphere.
Still, I mean, it must be nice to be, being talked about by a number of big teams at that time.
Yeah, definitely. Being my first Formula 1 place with Ferrari, I mean, what cannot get much better, can it?
Yeah, exactly. And as you mentioned earlier, you didn't go down that typical route of going Formula Renault or GP2. You went to DTM with Mercedes. I guess I'm interested because I'm always a fan of DTM. What was your first experience driving there? Did you think, oh, this is maybe not quite what I expected, or you were part of those weekends anyway with the Formula 3, so was it sort of normal?
Yeah, I always followed DTM, so I always liked DTM, and it was, as soon as I tried the car, I think those were really cool cars from the beginning onwards, and I always wanted to race them. Obviously, I remember at the time when I was driving sometimes Formula One with Williams, I did a couple of young driver tests, and also afterwards with Force India as a reserve driver. I remember that every time I was jumping in the Formula One car, I would be like, "Wow, this is so good!" And I don't want to drive DTM ever again, because Formula One, it looked like pure speed and the pure adrenaline of driving a race car. But still, every time I jumped into a DTM car, and for the first time also from Formula 3, I was like very impressed with the quality of the car, and also the quality of the series, because it's a super competitive series, and I think it teaches you a lot.
And it's interesting because a lot of the drivers that have worked with me, well, not a lot, a couple of the drivers, I mean, look at Paul di Resta, Pascal Wehrlein, both of those went through DTM to get to Formula 1, so I guess it was still very much the dream to get to Formula 1 after a couple of seasons in DTM?
Yeah, absolutely. There was always a path to get to Formula 1, especially being with Mercedes. But I have to say my first 3 years in DTM were very hard. So I lost a bit of ground because I was not in the competitive car, and it took me a while to understand how the championship worked. Also politically, there were some things obviously that were important in the series, and I don't think I was mentally ready for those conditions I had. So I lost a bit the interest for Formula One, because I could see other people getting chances when I didn't, and I struggled to manage that situation. I think when I was also at Force India as a reserve driver, I didn't think I had the chance to race, because there was Nico Hülkenberg and Sergio Perez, which were both on long-term contracts. So I didn't see myself getting an opportunity there. So I kind of missed the train at that time, and I had to focus on DTM.
I mean, thankfully, you've still got a great career, and you've done loads of great things since. But I guess, the opportunity with Force India, that would have been a great opportunity. Maybe a different time, wouldn't it? Maybe a couple of years earlier, when they were really looking for a driver. Yeah,
sure. But I don't really mind, because, like you say, I've had so far a good career, and I'm still nearly 29. Actually, in 3 days, I'm turning 29, and when you look at Verstappen's and these kids that are so young, you might think, okay, you're getting old. But I feel that, might be, when the right time comes, maybe there are some other opportunities. You never know. You can never write them off. And especially now, we're racing online against these super psychos like Max, Lando, and I'm giving them a run for their money. So it's cool times ahead, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to speak about sim racing. I've got a few questions later on, which I definitely want to get to. I'm interested about 2015, because that's when you started doing a lot more racing. It wasn't sort of just 1 or 2 series. You seemed to enter sort of 4 or 5 different series. And was that at the request of Mercedes, or was it you really wanting to try loads of different cars?
Yeah, I wanted to drive some endurance series, like the Blancpain GT Endurance Series, and do some GTs, because I thought it was cool. Some races like 24 hours of Spa, and I was looking to doing those kind of series that are also, part of a driver's career in DTM, in GTs, and I think that was really cool. Also, by the end of the year, I went back to Macau, which it was actually my decision. I think Mercedes was not very happy about it, because I was a DTM driver and I was going to race against these youngsters, which for them it made no sense, but for me I needed to do that, because I had been in a position where I had lost like I said, the Formula One train, and I was a bit frustrated with myself and with everything, thinking, okay, I'm not enjoying this that much, and why I'm not being given the chances that I'd like to. So I said, I wanna go to Macau and race in Formula 3 and just enjoy. And that was great, because I went to Macau and I put it on the front row after qualifying, when I qualified on second. And then I got crashed out in the first corner by Giovinazzi. So the weekend was over. But still, for me, it was a good wake-up call, thinking, okay, I still have it, and I was good. And towards the end of the year, there was this race that Mercedes organized that was called Stars and Cars. And I ended up winning that race in front of Verlaine and Hamilton.
I've seen that picture, yeah. It's great. Well, I was interested to know about that, sort of going back to Macau, actually, because is there a worry? Well, I guess maybe some drivers worry about it, that you go back and maybe you don't beat the youngsters. Does it look bad on your career? But I mean, you did it and you managed to go back there and obviously put in a great performance. But was there any sort of worry about going back and, maybe for some reason finishing like 15th or something?
Yeah, I didn't really worry, but actually Mercedes did. Mercedes did warn me that they didn't really understand why I was going to do that and give me a bad name if I don't finish in front. But I thought completely the opposite, because nobody really, I mean, of course they know I'm experienced, but I hadn't been driving for 3 years a Formula 3 car, and those guys are very, very, very fit and ready to race those cars, and especially around Macau, they've been racing the whole season. So my expectations were, I didn't have any expectations. I knew I was having a strong car, because Fortec had always had a competitive car in Macau, and I honestly had a very good engineer for that race as well. So I really enjoyed the weekend, and they gave me a competitive car. So I think it was great. I have very, very fond memories about that weekend, even if I ended up not racing at all because of the incident. The chassis was down after the start of the race. So, but still, like, that qualifying, I think, is one of the best qualifyings I've done in my career, and I have the same passion for that weekend than I have it for winning in Macau in 2011. To be fair, so yeah, I think it was cool.
I mean, it's a great circuit to watch as a fan, but I guess as a driver, is it one of your favourite circuits, would you say, or do you look forward to going back?
It's my favourite circuit, but
oh wow,
it's also easy to name it your favourite track, because it has a bit of combination of everything. Like you said, it's a roller coaster, and the track is amazing. Together with Nürburgring, with the long track with the Notchlife, I think both of them are fantastic tracks.
I'd like to go back to DTM quickly, because especially 2018, obviously Mercedes had a better car that year. You won a race, quite a few pole positions, I think, maybe the most in the championship, I'm not sure, but definitely right out there.
And 3 poles, yeah. It's
unfortunate when you look at the standings, it didn't all work out for you. I guess there's quite a few problems throughout the season, but how do you reflect on that year? Because I guess the win and all those poles really just sort of, for me at least, made me realise once again how good Dani is.
Yeah, I actually, it was again like a turning point in my career, especially in DTM, because I had been in DTM for many years and I didn't manage to score a podium yet. So I think I just lacked that self-confidence of having one result just that makes you click, and say, okay, this is where I belong. So I started the year pretty consistent, but I didn't really get the big results. And like you said, we had a competitive car, and Gary Paffett was winning races. Paul Di Resta was also thereabouts, fighting in the front. So I think it was at Norris Ring, which was the 4th race weekend, that I got my first pole position. And it just clicked from there on. I ended up finishing 3rd in the race because we missed a bit the strategy. So that was my first podium. And after that, I started having very competitive weekends. I was always qualifying in top 2 Mercedes cars, and I got 2nd most pole positions that year. I won at Brands Hatch. I won at Red Bull Ring, but I got the win taken away because of a safety car restart, which was bit of a controversy, but mistake from my side, and but that race was won on track. So yeah, I think was a great end of season, and like I said, a turning point for me, because I truly believed again, okay, I can do this in DTM as well. And a shame that it was the last year for Mercedes and we couldn't continue rebuilding on that. But then in 11, when I raced with Aston Martin, even the results don't show it, because we didn't have a competitive car, but I was on a consistent basis the best Aston Martin on track. So and I beat Paul Di Resta to the championship standings, who was a championship contender in 18. So that shows that I was again on the right path. But fortunately, that was cut short again, because we were not supposed to continue for 2020. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame actually, because I thought that things were really getting there with the car. It looked like by the end of the year the BMW was not that far ahead in terms of, the Audi seemed to be way out ahead, but it seemed like the BMW was certainly within reach by the end of the year.
Yeah, it seemed like we were getting closer and closer, but still it was a no-go, I think, because if you look at the budget differences between Audi, BMW and us, it's just massive. So there was no way we could be competitive to fight those guys. And yeah, but still, like from my side, like I said, a very consistent season where I was consistently there, and that's what counts the most for me, to be fair.
And I don't know, from watching all the races, it seems like in a way it could have been your best season, because as you say, you beat Di Resta, you were consistently just around the top 10, and considering the car was not really maybe good enough, it was pretty impressive.
Like for me, I rate it as my best season, because I was consistent, and that's what matters the most in these high performance and high competitiveness championships, that you have to be consistent, because everybody's so good that you need to be always there to be consistent to fight for wins. And in our case, if you look at the qualifyings, mostly because we had a lot of reliability issues, and to be fair, from all my teammates, I was the one that had least reliability issues. So but if you look at the qualifyings, I was always like 60% of the races I was quickest at Aston Martin, and the other ones I was maybe out qualified by one of my teammates. Jake Dennis, for example, he was also very quick sometimes. So I think, like I said, and like you mentioned, my strongest season in DTM. I was a bit worried that DTM was carrying on and I couldn't be part of it, so I was a bit jealous about the guys racing in DTM, to be fair. But at this time, like, nobody's racing, so everything is fine for me. I'm just enjoying the time at home, to be fair. And with the virtual racing, we have a good platform to keep training, to keep ourselves active. And honestly, I'm pushing flat out online. I'm driving so much every day, trying to get consistent and to improve myself and to beat the top guys. And that's paying off pretty good, because I'm doing a lot of races and always consistently in the front and fighting the big guys. So that's hopefully gonna help make myself a name also in the virtual world. And who knows, let's see what happens with this season and what we're racing and when are we racing, because that's also a question mark for everybody. But I don't know how the motorsport world is going to change after this. Maybe we see some big changes. I don't know. So you have to be ready for anything that comes. And the way I approach it is by racing all day, and not all day, but as much as I can, and getting myself ready for the next opportunity.
Yeah, it's been great to watch you in all of these virtual races. I was saying before that has this probably been the busiest first few months of the season you've probably ever had? Yeah,
absolutely. I've been doing a lot and training physically as well, keeping myself active. So I've been super busy, to be fair. And every night I go to bed and I have so many messages to answer because I'm focusing a lot on being active virtually and going to my A level in everywhere I'm racing, so which is cool too.
I'd like to maybe just highlight a couple of the events. You've been fighting with Max right at the front of those events for quite a few of them now. How have you found that? I mean, I've seen a couple of the ones where it looks like he's slightly squeezed you onto the grass a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to race against Max, to be fair. I think for me, he's the best driver in Formula 1 right now, because he's very quick, naturally talented, but he's also very aggressive. And whenever you're racing around him, it's gonna be some wheel banging, and he's not gonna make it easy for you. And virtually, he's even tougher, because I think he obviously has some ego, and he wants to beat everybody, and he doesn't want to get beaten. So I realized the last couple of races that he either wins or if you try to beat him, he's gonna crash into you. Not gonna crash into you, but you're gonna crash with him. So the last 3 times I tried to overtake him, we ended up crashing, or one of us ended up in the wall or on the grass, and that's how it works sometimes. So you just need to out-qualify him and pull away. Otherwise, it's gonna be a rough one. But yeah, I think he's really good, and any chances I get to race against him and prove to myself and to everybody that I can be at his level, that's, I think, very good marketing for myself as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, it really helps put in perspective different series and how good certain drivers are. Somebody obviously like yourself has been racing GTs and touring cars against Max, who's just been doing single-seaters. It puts everyone on a more level playing field, doesn't it, I guess, just to see who is outright the quickest driver.
Yeah, exactly. We keep changing cars, we keep changing tracks, we keep everything, people need to adapt quickly to something, and that's where you prove the talent that somebody has to adapt to different circumstances. And that's great for everybody, for us to practice and to challenge ourselves to be the best, and for people at home to watch us going at it, because it's our only way to entertain people at home right now.
Cool. I've only got a couple more questions. The first of which was, I'm interested about racing in these simulators. I mean, obviously they're not completely realistic. Of course, you can't learn everything from them, but what can you take from the simulator to the real world?
Well, I think the consistency and the perfectionism is something that stands out in simulators. The perfect lap in simulator exists. In real life, I don't think it exists, or it's really hard to get. Because in the simulator, you can crash or go off, do a mistake, you can stop, you reset, you go out, new tires, and same car. This doesn't happen in real life. You cannot spend a day probably using 50 sets of new tires, so you never find the absolute perfect lap. In the simulator, you do. Every week, I can be driving thousands of laps at the track, and from lap 200 to lap 800, I find 3-4 tenths just by driving, just by finding tricks. And that's what makes simulator racing so competitive and so difficult. And that's something you can bring into your real racing career, because the perfectionism you reach and the level of details that you can work on when you're racing in the simulator, also with telemetry, also working with engineers, you can find details, and working and perfecting all those things is something that teaches you a lot for a real racing career.
I'd just like to, my last question is sort of on the future. I mean, is there anything that you haven't driven and raced in that you'd like to? I guess the big one to me, just as a fan, would it be something like Formula E, or does that not appeal to you right now?
Yeah, it does. Formula E, of course, it's a good series where I'd like to be part of. But if I could choose a series now that I would like to be part of for a race or for an event at least, and that is like kind of a bucket list, it's the V8 Supercars
Okay.
Definitely, that's a car that I would love to drive, and it looks so cool racing those cars. They look really hard to drive, and I've tried them on iRacing, and they're already pretty hard. And the Bathurst event, the 1000 Bathurst 1000, I think that would be a race that I'd love to do one day.
Perfect. That was my last question. Thank you for all of the great stories, Dani. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, cool.
And all the best. And hopefully we get racing soon. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you.